Let's see. Senator Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Jaczko, a traffic policeman's job would be to keep the traffic safe, and all five of you said public health and safety was your job, but if the traffic cop just stopped all the cars from going anywhere, his supervisor might come down and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not very creative of you. Is there anything within the charge of the commission to make it possible for a nuclear power plant to create an environment in which a nuclear power plant can actually operate and which a new one could actually be built?
Well, I don't think there's a charge specifically for that to be the motivation for what we do, but certainly...
That's not a part of your charge, to create an environment in which a power plant can... I mean, if your only charge is public health and safety, you'd shut them all down.
No, I think our charge is reasonable assurance of public health and safety. So the charge is that we are providing a level of assurance that's reasonable.
So there's no economic responsibility, no responsibility you have to make sure that a power plant can also be operated economically at the same time?
No, our requirements really fall into two categories. Those things which are kind of the basic tenets of safety based on court decisions the commission is required to make those safety decisions irrespective of the economic considerations of that decision. Certainly when it goes to the implementation of requirements, we can consider the economic impact and look to see which is the most cost beneficial.
You can consider that?
At that stage, but not at the basis of determining whether something is a fundamental safety requirement. At that point, we are barred by a court decision from considering economic.
Well, is it your objective and that of the commission to create an environment in which new nuclear power plants could be built?
No, my goal is to continue to ensure that we have an environment in which nuclear power plants are safe, and if new plants are to be built, that they will be as safe as our requirements dictate.
So you don't have any well, what about the recommendation of the commission that recommended that you complete without delay the design certification of the AP 1000 and the economically simplified boiling water reactor design?
I think that was a recommendation not to encourage the commission to take action, but it was a recommendation indicating that there was no reason to specifically delay action as a result of these recommendations.
Well, that sounds like action to me. Are you planning to do it without delay? Does that mean within 90 days?
We are continuing to move forward. And in
Can
fact,
you do it within 90 days?
We will be fairly close to receiving a final rule on the AP 1000 in October, which again is part of the reason for us to look at these recommendations in 90 days, because when we go into the decision of looking at a final design for instance, the AP 1000, I think it's important that we've dispositioned all of these recommendations so we know what, if any, changes would impact those new reactors.
Well, will considering all of the recommendations, all 12, delay your consideration of the design certification for the AP 1000 and the new boiling water reactor design?
Not in my opinion. However, I believe if we don't consider the recommendations in a timely way, it could have the potential impact of delaying the action on the new reactor licensing.
But there's a lot of talk here about delay. This report said you should do this without delay. I mean, why did they say that?
I don't know. I mean, that's probably something to better ask the task force. But again, I think the information that's relevant there is that it was useful information for the commission to know that there were no immediate issues with the design certification. Now,
but let me press you a little further. I mean, you said you think everything could be done in 90 days. Does that include these two designs?
What I said is that it is important for the commission to disposition the 12 recommendations. I would note that the statements related to new reactors are not any of the 12 recommendations of the task force.
But they're in the report.
That's correct.
Yeah, and they say without delay, right?
That's correct, and we are currently not delaying any of the new reactor work. However, as I said, if we don't promptly act on these recommendations, it will create uncertainty for what actions would be applicable to those new reactors, which in my opinion could actually lead to a potential delay in that work if we don't disposition these recommendations promptly.
Well, as you can tell from my hope is that you'll take if you're going to take the task force's you could take the committee's advice to do the task force recommendations within 90 days, that you'll take the task force's advice to complete these design certifications without delay. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I would just call your attention to the mission of the NRC, which is clearly stated. The U.S. NRC is an independent agency created by Congress. The mission of the NRC is to license and regulate the nation's civilian use of byproduct source and special nuclear materials in order to protect public health and safety, promote the common defense and security, and protect the environment. So, it's right.
Well, Madam Chair, I would think that it is still a legitimate question whether a traffic cop should stop all the traffic. That's one way to have safety. His supervisor still might ask him if he couldn't be a little more creative and at least let people drive in a safe way.
I don't think that's the right analogy, because there's really no analogy when you're dealing with nuclear energy. And I think,
we've had a lot more traffic. We tolerate 38,000 traffic deaths every year. We've never had one with a nuclear reactor in the United States.
That says a lot for the fact that we have an independent agency protecting the health and safety. They said the same thing in Japan until recently, but in any event, let's move on. Obviously, we have differences here just like you have differences there. But I want to make the point, and I really do want to make this point because I made it to you before. As many differences as we have here, we're friends. And we differ, we argue, we debate. I'm sensing with you that maybe there needs to be a little bit more friendship, just a point, spoken as a human being, not as a senator. I think it's important that these differences not become personal. If Inhofe and I can do it, we are really good friends, then anybody could do it. Anyway, here we go. We're moving on, and we're going now to Senator Lautenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And this is beginning to look like a glee club here. Everybody, happy faces. What you say isn't really what you get.